Today, Malam El-Rufai is being held, and his health is failing from all accounts that we've had. I'll repeat it here. If, God forbid, anything happens to Malam Nasiru Rufai, President Bola Tinubu should realize, even if he didn't intend it, that he will be held personally responsible. And the consequences cannot even be imagined. President Bola Tinubu, known as Malam, knows him. And he knows what Malam is capable of doing because he knows what Malam did for him. And that's why he made sure that the one person he's taken out of circulation is Malam, because he knows what he's capable of doing. If I were Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila, I would go to the president and say, Mr. President, I offer to proceed on leave because it's my name that is being dragged in the mud, and no amount of money on earth is worth my name. I offer to proceed on leave to allow this investigation to be carried out so I can be exonerated beyond all doubts. You are sitting pretty in the office while all this is swelling around you, while this stench of corruption is swelling around you. I was reading one now before we came in, published by People's Gazette, talking about another oil deal. You know, there's something oily about the whole thing. There's something oily. There's something oily about the whole thing, you know. You see, Victor, in a sane country, this will be the end of this administration. This scandal will end this administration. Go around the country and talk to people. In some parts of the north, you cannot go and mention Tinubu's name. I'm very sure of that. Even some APC governors and politicians contesting under APC cannot put Tinubu's photo on their campaign posters or messaging. But you can only rig where you have the possibility of winning. Every politician knows this. Where you have no possibility of winning, you cannot rig. When you rig, you cause trouble for yourself.
With 34 governors on his side, with
are these governors
the security agencies?
Are these governors not the architect of the suffering that is going on? How many have you not seen governors that lost the election after leaving office? They contest for Senate and lost the election. If it were possible for governors to determine how the people vote, will governors be losing senatorial elections?
So you don't have any fears of his continued stay in power beyond 2027?
God must be punishing us for a terrible sin that we committed as Nigerians, for him to inflict on us this kind of government that we have today.
All right, welcome to Niger on Feet, a SYMFONI podcast. And our guest on today's edition of the program is the National Publicity Secretary of the African Democratic Congress, Malam Bolaji Abdullahi. Good to have you on show.
Thank you very much. Good to have you. Good to see you again. Well done.
Your party seems to be going from 1 week, one trouble.
We are used to it by now.
All right, let's help us to make sense of the Court of Appeal judgment yesterday annulling the state congresses and national convention of your party.
Well, I mean, it's difficult to actually speaking strictly in terms of the law. I'm not a lawyer, but I've listened to so many lawyers who have engaged this matter since yesterday. Is what my conclusion that I come to is that it's actually very difficult to make sense of what happened. When the Federal High Court ruled some weeks ago that the congresses that we should not hold any congresses, that any congresses held will be regarded invalid, and that is the state executives of the party that have the power to organize congresses. We found it quite absurd. But we felt that this absurdity would be corrected by the Court of Appeal. That's why we went to the Court of Appeal. But unfortunately, the Court of Appeal, in its wisdom, decided to uphold the same absurdity. The minority position of the presiding justice of the Court of Appeal, we believe, reflects more the position of the law, which is what we believe in and which is what we have canvassed. And that's why we are going to the Supreme Court, and we have no doubt in our mind that the judgment of the Court of Appeal yesterday cannot stand because it doesn't actually make sense. Now, talking about the tenure of the executive, saying that we should not do anything to tamper with the tenure of the executive. Now, the tenure of the executive had lapsed since May 29. So how could you, can the court grant an extension of tenure that is not granted by the party to party executives? And that's why we say fundamentally, this case is not justiciable, and which is the position of the minority judgment yesterday, that it is wholly about the leadership and internal affairs of the party is not justiciable. So, but like I said, we have clarified, contrary to some media reports, the judgment yesterday, even as absurd as it is, has no consequence for our candidates, whether at the presidential level, or at the governorship level, or National Assembly or State Assembly level. So it's just about the constitution of state congresses, and we're going to continue to challenge it at the Supreme Court.
And this will not in any way affect their participation in the election as time goes on, giving INEC timetable as well.
No. It has no consequence because the plaintiffs, the people who went to court, what they were asking for is the preservation of their tenure as state executives of the party. So it has no consequence for if we had organized. We anticipated this and we were smarter than them, right? If we had embraced the 2026 Electoral Act, gave two options. Either you do a consensus or you do direct primaries. At the time that the law was, the act was passed, we kicked against it because we said it didn't give us the option of delegate election in direct primaries. But it turned out to be our savior because if we had done delegate election, we would still need to organize congresses. And secondly, if we had embraced consensus, we still need to organize congresses to ratify the consensus. But we knew what they could do, and that was why we ensured that it's only through direct primaries that all our candidates emerged. So we didn't organize any congresses, we didn't organize any convention. So the ruling yesterday, like I said, even as absurd as we find it, does not in any way tamper with the nomination of our candidates.
Just for the sake of argument, assuming these judgments subsist at the Supreme Court, just for the sake of arguments, where does it leave your party?
And that's why I say it doesn't make sense, because the question we will now ask, if you say we should not organize congresses, then does it mean that those who went to court will remain in office forever? Or that they will organize congresses that will sustain their tenure and bring them in? You see, it doesn't make sense. Even at the level of implementation, it is almost impracticable what the court is suggesting, the implication. So in the end, we believe that, that's why we are confident that the Supreme Court is going to upturn this, because it doesn't make sense. Everybody knows that a political party has the right to decide the systems on how to manage its own party. It's our party. It's a voluntary association of people brought together on a shared ideal. So how can a court legislate, especially when we've not violated any aspect of our own constitution? So that's how we don't envisage that the Supreme Court will, but like you said, for the purpose of argument, if it does happen, then we'll have to resolve that conundrum on how to continue to manage the party, or like they want to create a vacuum, or they want to say that some of these state executives that went to court under the ADC have been in office for over 20 years. But that was the kind of party they had at the time. ADC is no longer that kind of party. It had to be governed by principles of democracy. But there is strength to some of them, and that is why they've gone to court, because they want to continue to remain in office forever. But at the time that we started this, they said they wanted the party to become a bigger party. We have turned ADC into a mainstream political party, a de facto opposition political party in Nigeria today. With due respect, ADC had been existing since 1999 or so. But it is the coalition coming into ADC that has promoted it to the mainstream of political conversation in Nigeria. And they were happy for us to come in. But they want to continue to practice what they used to practice and remain in office in perpetuity. That is not going to happen. You can't eat your cake and have it.
Some persons have also been looking at the Court of Appeal judgment yesterday, and they find it a little strange that the lead of the panel of the Court of Appeal, Justice Abba Mohammed, is the one writing minority report, as against what majority would have thought would have been the order of the day, the head of the panel, and probably one other person, writing the majority report, and then one person saying, okay, I'm writing minority report.
Yeah.
How do you even see that?
You see, we are going through very strange times in Nigeria. Everybody is under trial. The media is under trial. The political parties are under trial. The judiciary is under trial. The democracy itself is under trial. By the time this APC government is done with Nigeria, God forbid that they get a re-election, I doubt that any single institution will still be able to retain its credibility, because of their obsessive desire to hold on to power. They are willing to corrupt every institution in Nigeria. And we are seeing things that we've never seen before. And I'll give you an example. You asked me a question about this. The Court of Appeal that directed on the issue of status quo antebellum, if you remember that we should revert to status quo antebellum, the judgment that INEC used to deregister David Mark and co. was a unanimous decision of the Federal Court of Appeal. Unanimous. But we went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court unanimously said no, the Court of Appeal did not have that power. It was wrong. Now, the Court of Appeal is a very, very senior court in Nigeria. How could they unanimously have gone wrong? How could they? Is it that the Lord Justices don't know the law? It cannot be. They know the law. These are very, very senior judges. How could they collectively be wrong? And it makes us to begin to wonder, are there forces that have undermined the judiciary as an institution in Nigeria? Someone was just calling my attention to it some minutes ago. The judgment that was delivered yesterday was not pronounced until about 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the evening. But by 3 o'clock, the full judgment was already in public domain. How? How did that happen? Who obtained the judgment before they were read? Who released it to the media before they were read?
Probably who wrote the judgment?
Who wrote the judgment? Probably who wrote the judgment. And that's why I said, these people in power today are willing to corrupt every institution. They behave as if there will be no Nigeria after them. As if once they are done, Nigeria will just fold up. They don't think about the responsibility that we have to pass on to the next generation a banner without stain. That's what our national anthem said. The one that they chose themselves when they came to power.
All right, there is this also disturbing development, very concerning, about Matthew Bala also claiming to have gotten, uploaded his 2027 presidential candidates and National Assembly candidates. Is it that INEC gave 2 codes to ADC, or what exactly is happening?
Matthew Bala has been proven to be a congenital liar. And INEC itself has exposed that. has affirmed that. Few minutes after he announced that he had obtained codes from INEC and he had uploaded presidential candidates, we knew it was not possible. And we issued a statement assuring our members across the country that it's not possible, that INEC would not give two codes to the same political party, and the INEC has given the code to the party that is recognized by the commission and the law. Then few hours later, we are delighted that INEC itself issued a statement saying that he was a liar, that they did not issue any code to him or his group. But beyond that, what we are calling for his prosecution. Because what he did was to make a claim that suggests that he could actually have access to a secured INEC election facilities. Because by claiming that he had uploaded candidates to the server or to the portal of INEC without him being given the due authorization, raises an entire question, an entirely different question about the security of the INEC or INEC portal itself, or whether any individual could just go behind the back door to upload candidates. It raises serious questions. And that's why we said INEC must not stop at just denying that they gave him a code. INEC has a duty to protect its own integrity and to reassure Nigerians that its security is actually unimpeachable. So we are not, you see, what these chaps have mastered the art of doing is just to continue to create confusion and doubt and all that. And that's what they are. That's what they are being sponsored to do. It's like hecklers. When star performers come out, you have people positioned in the audience to continue to heckle, to continue to make noise, to distract them. And they are hecklers. I mean, we don't bother about them. We don't bother about them.
All right, let's have your assessment of President Tinubu's 3 years in office.
Where do I even start? Where do I start? But what is clear to me today is that in the last 3 years, we'll be standing on President Tinubu's mandate. What is clear is that if we continue to stand on that mandate beyond 2027, we are all going to collapse. Because that mandate today is flooded by blood. That mandate today is characterized by widespread hunger. We can sit in Abuja here wearing our nice dress thinking that everything is fine. Victor, go downtown, go and talk to people. People are suffering. But what is clear is that this government doesn't care. They don't care. Businesses are collapsing every day. I've met people who cry and say, look, we did not do anything wrong, but our businesses have collapsed. So for the first time, we are seeing things that have never happened in this country. So we're not just talking about the cost of living, which is indeed a very, very serious matter. The issue of insecurity. A few days ago, we congratulate the parents and families of the children abducted from Oyo State and returned to. And I don't know if you saw Governor Seyi Makinde yesterday raising questions. I mean, yes, Nigeria is a country where we love conspiracy theory, but when someone at the level of the governor is raising questions about what actually happened and saying that he didn't believe that what happened was just an act of terrorism. He believed that there is political undertone to it, and that's why he's calling for external investigators into what happened. We have to take it seriously. We have to take it seriously. So one thing to answer your question directly is that when you ask me how will I assess President Bola Tinubu in the last 3 years, the question I will ask myself, if I want to be charitable, what is the one thing I will say they have done right? In what way will I say this government has improved the livelihood of the people? I've tried to be charitable. I've tried to talk to even some of their ardent supporters to mention one thing that they've done right. And what they tell you, President Tinubu has had the courage to remove fuel subsidy. I say, no, that's the very problem. You are telling me about the very problem. It's not the removal of the subsidy. The net effect, the net consequence of the removal of subsidy is what has landed us in this catastrophic situation we found ourselves. Because the president took an impulsive decision the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So he cannot claim that, oh, I had a good intention. But the catastrophic consequences of his action is what has led majority of Nigerians into absolute penury. And he has to take responsibility for that. So when you ask them again, what else have you achieved? They'll say, haven't you seen NEL fund that the government is giving children loan to go to university? And I say, hang on. Yes, you are giving students loan to go to university. Last week, the law school turned out over 6,000 graduates, new lawyers, 6,000. Victor next year will add another 6,000 or more. Nobody is asking the 6,000 that graduated last year, where are they? What work are they doing? Who is employed in them? After 5 years in the university of rigorous hard work, these children, where do they go? Where are the jobs? So when you are doing this, when you are creating space, let's assume for the purpose of argument that indeed the NEL fund is actually helping more children to go to university. But when you are doing that, without expanding opportunities at the tail end, what you are doing is just expanding the space of frustration for these young people. So what problem have they really solved? Because we cannot separate this from the issue of employment. So, and that's why I say it's difficult for me to say what they have achieved. The only thing that can save Nigeria in 2027 is for this president to say, I've done my best, because they believe they have actually done their best. So if this is their best, what are they coming back to do? If this is President Bola Tinubu's best, then what is he coming back to do? Because we've seen his best, and his best has not taken us anywhere. So I think the best thing for him to do is to say, look, I've done my best for Nigeria. I've always wanted to be president. I've been president. Thank you very much, Nigeria. I honorably bow out. That's what we'll expect him to do, not to continue to seek another time to continue this thing that he's doing.
Has this government, by any stretch of imagination, crossed any line that has raised their concerns and fears about our democracy?
Oh, of course. But they are not alone. The principle of checks and balances is intended to create what is called positive tension between the various arms of government, the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature, in order to prevent dictatorship. And that is why the National Assembly exists, that's why the judiciary exists. But what you find is that the three arms of government now appear to have all gathered together on President Tinubu's mandate and willing to do only what the president wants. How many times? This is the first time we'll have a government that has not implemented the budget. Budget is law. Budget is the law passed by the representatives of the people, the National Assembly. And the moment it's signed by the president, it becomes a law. But you are running three budgets at the same time, you have not implemented any. A few weeks ago, an international organization told us that there are about 8.8 trillion naira unbudgeted expenditure carried out by this government. If that is not an impeachable offense, if it is not a violation of the law, then what is? How many times has this government flagrantly disobeyed court orders? How many times have they flagrantly done things that are against the law of Nigeria and got away with it with the active collusion of the National Assembly under Senator Akpabio? So you have to ask yourself, what is democracy? What is democracy? What is democracy without checks and balances? The internal mechanism meant to sustain, preserve the sanctity of the right of the people to choose. What is democracy without the right to choose? Everything that this government has done is to undermine opposition political parties. All these court cases that you say this is going through, where are they coming from? So what I'm saying is that this government has corrupted has done everything to undermine democracy itself. And that is against the spirit of our constitution. So asking me if they've crossed the line, so many times we don't even know where the lines are anymore.
It is said that a people beget the kind of leaders they want. Do you think that Nigerians are actually holding their leaders accountable? Because if we are actively engaging our leaders, engaging the present executives, maybe some of these issues won't be a talking point any longer. But it seems like somebody described Nigeria as a politician's haven.
Well, perhaps they are right. Perhaps they are right. And I will be the one to tell you here that even people like us who are members of the political class will be the first to admit that the political class has failed Nigerians over the years. To the extent that people like us don't feel very proud to say we are politicians. Because what has made our job as opposition a lot more difficult is that when we get up to speak to say, oh, we are going to do something differently, people laugh. They say, we've had all this before. We've seen all this before. Don't forget in 2015, Nigerians were mobilized almost into a frenzy with the promise of change. How many years later? 12 years later or so, here we are. What has changed? Things have actually deteriorated infinitely. Deteriorated. So people look at us and say, oh, these are the same people that promised change at the time. So when we tell them now that, oh, we are going to do something differently, people look at us with a heavy dose of cynicism and say nothing's going to change. I saw a video that came out of Ekiti election when one lady was celebrating that she was given 15,000 naira to vote and she was saying ADC forever. Maybe that was the desired objective, to weaponize poverty to the extent that people will no longer be able to think and people will not be able to ask questions. But the second point is this. You see, I read somewhere, I can't remember now, that if you want to destroy an entire people, you don't need guns and machetes and all that. If you enter a village, you want to wipe out the entire village, just drop a poison in the source of their water, in the well that they drink. The whole community will die, right? It's the same thing if you want to destroy a nation, destroy public education.
Let's come back to your party. A member of your party, El-Rufai, has been incarcerated since, or if you like, has been held since February 16 and still counting for offenses that ordinarily are bailable offenses. From your perspective, let's take your reaction on the issues surrounding his continued detention and what role exactly did he play in President Tinubu's coming to power that may be reasons for his continued detention.
Well, we don't know why, we don't know what went wrong. But what is clear is that this is not about law. It's not about crime and punishment. It's politics. Malam Nasiru Rufai is not being held today because he committed any crime. Because that would have been left for the court to decide. Let the court pronounce that he's guilty or he's not guilty. But to continue to hold him interminably speaks to something else. And that is why it is clear to us that the desire or the intention of this APC government is to continue to hold Malam Nasiru Rufai to ensure that he does not participate in this election and it does not strengthen the opposition. That is exactly what they plan to do. I mean, but don't forget, like the family said, Malam Rufai fought for President Bola Tinubu when everyone didn't want him, when everyone in the Buhari cabinet didn't want him, when President Buhari himself did not want him. Was Malam Nasiru Rufai that mobilized people. When some people in the north were saying they must contest in the election of 2015, it was 2023, it was Malam Nasiru Rufai that mobilized the entire north behind President Bola Tinubu, along with other people. And I've seen videos where President Bola Tinubu himself was appealing to Malam Rufai not to leave the country because the government will need him. Then what happened? Some of these things beggar beliefs and make you begin to wonder whether it's true what people say, that there are marabouts who are determining these things, who say, oh, maybe this person's star would outshine your own if you allow him to come near. We hear these things, right? So, but you begin to worry, because if it doesn't make sense, you resort to the metaphysical and begin to ask yourself, maybe there are some things that you don't just understand because it doesn't add up, it doesn't make sense, So, but what we are saying is that today, Malam El-Rufai is being held, and his health is failing from all accounts that we've had. I'll repeat it here. If, God forbid, anything happens to Malam Nasiru Rufai, President Bola Tinubu should realize, even if he didn't intend it, that he will be held personally responsible. And the consequences cannot even be imagined. So, it's either he releases Malam El-Rufai on bail and allow him to face justice, or he continues to hold him until the end of his tenure in May 2029. We will come into government. We will investigate what happened, and due blames will be apportioned. Malam Nasiru Rufai, if he's not guilty, he will be released.
Do you think Malam El-Rufai is a threat to President Tinubu's 2027 ambition?
Oh, absolutely. If anybody can make you, then they can mar you. It stands to logic. I've just given an account of the role that he played in bringing about the Tinubu Presidency. So if you in my place we have a proverb that if someone points to you a grave that say, oh, it's a blind man that was buried here, a stranger comes to the village and say, oh, this is the grave of a blind man. Somebody in the village must have told him. So they know these things. They know what transpired. So he knows that Malam knows him. President Bola Tinubu, known as Malam, knows him. And he knows what Malam is capable of doing because he knows what Malam did for him. And that's why he made sure that the one person he's taken out of circulation is Malam, because he knows what he's capable of doing. If someone cannot help you, then he can't hurt you. He knows Malam helped him, and he knows Malam can hurt him.
All right, let's talk about whether to call it the fake agency scandal involving the chief of staff to the president, which Prince Adeyemi alleged that he had to even part with 400 million naira, which he borrowed, and the people he borrowed the money, as a matter of fact, reported to the EFCC about the same manner, waiting for the balance of 200 million. What do you make of all of these scandals?
The first thing to say is that all of us, it's not just President Bola Tinubu, all of us as Nigerians should feel collectively embarrassed. But the impression that's been created before the world is that the Nigerian presidency today is a den of corruption. There have been whispers that people just ignore. I mean, I hear things, but I will just dismiss it. Some of these things are not possible. They're just people talking about people taking money to award contracts, people taking money in the presidency to arrange appointment with the president, people taking money to get appointment for people into agencies and parastatal. We never believed it because we said, no, it can't be that bad. I've been a minister, and so I compared my time and I said, no, it's not possible, But with this Adeyemi allegation, people are thinking that this is just the one that got out, that this thing had been going on for such a long time, that it is just business as usual under President Bola Tinubu, and that this is just the one that got out. And that's why we say President Bola Tinubu has a duty to himself to ensure that this matter is investigated and proven beyond all doubts that his presidency is not complicit in this level of corruption that has shaken the very firmament of our nation. So when he said he's going to, he started by exonerating his chief of staff to say, no, I have confidence in my chief of staff. But what people are saying is that I'm protecting my chief of staff. That's what people are hearing. Well, you say I have confidence in my chief of staff. What people are hearing is that I'm protecting my chief of staff. It's not good for him. So people believe that the chief of staff has colluded in something of this magnitude, a corruption of this magnitude? The chief of staff said, no, I had no hand in it. Then why are you afraid of an independent panel to investigate? If I were Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila, I would go to the president and say, Mr. President, I offer to proceed on leave because it's my name that is being dragged in the mud, and no amount of money on earth is worth my name. I offer to proceed on leave to allow this investigation to be carried out so I can be exonerated beyond all doubts. But you are sitting pretty in the office while all this is swelling around you, while this stench of corruption is swelling around you. I was reading one now before we came in, published by People's Gazette, talking about another oil deal. You know, there's something oily about the whole thing. There's something oily. There's something oily about the whole thing, you know. If I were President Bola Tinubu, I will allow, because there are only two things. It's either the presidency, it's either the investigation is carried out and it is found that Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila or Nigerian presidency actually colluded in creating to be part of this scam. Or it is found out that no, Mr. Adeyemi all by himself created this phantom agency and penetrated the Nigerian system to that extent. The first one shows that the presidency is a den of criminals. The second one proves that the presidency is a bastion of incompetence. We'll have to choose either of the two. It's either they are confessing to criminality or they are confessing to incompetence of the highest order. Because why do I say so? How can an individual create an agency all by himself and obtained a waiver to employ 300 people from the head of service, get a budget into the national budget of Nigeria, and no committees in the National Assembly flagged it? Actually open an account at the Central Bank of Nigeria, all by himself. Come on. Then he went on to set up an office in the Federal Secretariat. And was actually carrying out high-profile activities and engaging with the diplomatic community and foreign countries. And no alarm anywhere. Nobody asked, who the heck is this guy? Not the office of the Secretary to the Federal Government, not the head of service, not the CBN, not the presidency, not any of these institutions, not the National Assembly committees that should provide oversight. I think the Adeyemi case is a nemesis that is haunting this administration. But I can tell you it's not the only one. It's just the one that got out. But they cannot hide it. Because we can see in the last couple of days, yes, we are happy the Oyo victims were rescued, but they think that people now, that will distract attention from this scandal while we celebrate that. But they can't get away with it. They can't get away with it. Because we must continue to insist on the answer. We will continue to insist on the answer. Yesterday, we saw a long letter that Adeyemi wrote to the president asking for it. The president had to guarantee that his life will be saved. Because the basic principles of law, the philosophy is nemo judice in causa sua. You cannot be a judge in your own case. So asking the ICPC, the same ICPC that you have employed to detain Malam Nasiru Rufai, the same ICPC that does your bidding, that you pay their salaries and approve their promotion, is the same ICPC that will now come around and say, oh, Mr. President, the Chief of Staff is guilty, or the SGF is guilty, or the Ministry of Foreign Affairs colluded. No, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. In any way, while you are asking the ICPC to investigate, you are already prejudicing them by saying that your Chief of Staff is a saint. So the whole thing doesn't make sense.
Adeyemi himself said, I am ready to prove with facts and figures that what I'm saying actually happened. And he was audacious also to say Do you mean that a single individual manipulated the whole system
Exactly the point.
to create an agency? And he says, I am ready, but the only point is that I can't guarantee my safety. Neither can I guarantee fairness with the commission that I want an independent panel of inquiry. And for President Tinubu, the presidency is indicted.
Look,
the people named are still in office. So how does this reconcile? And those who are asking at them, come out and talk. What's the advice to them?
You see, Victor, in a sane country, this will be the end of this administration. This scandal will end this administration. But not in Nigeria. They have thousands of people they've hired, young people they've hired on social media to continue to abuse people once this question is raised, not knowing that it's a country that is sinking because they are hungry. In a sane country, this scandal is enough to sink a presidency. Because the legitimate question is what Adeyemi is saying and which we are saying. Let's assume for the purpose of argument that he actually created this, that he actually carried out this scam all by himself. How was that possible? How many levels of failure happened in the system for this to be able to take place? The entire system along
different levels.
The different levels must have failed. Look, I operated in the federal government. I was a federal minister. I know how complex the Nigerian bureaucracy is. I know that as a federal minister, you are not an accounting officer, you cannot spend a kobo, you must get a certificate of no objection to even be able to award any contract. The entire bureaucracy is set up to provide checks to certain excesses. It's a complex system, and that's why it's called bureaucracy.
What do you make of the federal government coming after Governor Seyi Makinde for calling on the United Nations to investigate the Oyo kidnap? And the government is like, why are you talking? We have helped you. You have your children back. So what is the heck? Are you talking about the UN to come and investigate?
You see, in the fullness of time, Nigeria will know what actually happened in Oyo State. Governor Makinde, to the best of my knowledge, is not a flippant person. He's not a flippant person. He loves his people and his people love him. I've been in Oyo State several times and I know that his people love him. My wife is from Oyo State. I know his people love him. So for him to be saying, hang on, something doesn't add up here. Don't forget he's a governor. He has access to information. And for him to say we want bodies outside this country to investigate what truly happened, he's raising questions about the potential culpability of federal institutions in what has happened. But I don't want to think what he's suggesting is possible. I don't want to think so. But why are we afraid of investigation? It's just like the case of Adeyemi that we are talking about. I mean, if you are innocent of anything, I will be enthusiastic, more than any other person, to have my innocence proved beyond all doubts. But you see, the default instinct of the Tinubu administration is to attack whoever disagrees with them. Sometimes I have a feeling that they feel affronted when you ask them questions. How dare you? The president has spoken. How dare you ask questions? And we say, look, we are not a conquered people. We are not a conquered people. We are free citizens of Nigeria. Even under military rule, some of us practice journalism under the military rule. And we asked questions. But when the people voted for you, or you claim that the people voted for you, you have to be ready to answer questions from the people. Why are they afraid of answering questions? Why do they feel affronted when we ask them questions? Why would they feel disrespected when we ask them questions? And that comes back to the point I made earlier. What is democracy after all?
All right, you've repeatedly raised concerns about the independence of the Nigerian judiciary. In your opinion, how bad do you think it is?
Well, I still believe that as an institution, the Nigerian judiciary is a very credible institution. I know that a lot of judicial officers work under very, very appalling conditions. And I know that it's also possible that when you subject judicial officers to the situation that they are subjected to, it makes them vulnerable to hijack, to interference, to influences. Because a judge in a court should be beyond all doubts, should be beyond all reproach, should be beyond all suspicions, like the Caesar's wife, should be beyond all suspicions. But judges are also human beings. They also have bills to pay. And there are people who will be willing to exploit their vulnerability, in this regard. And that may have produced a couple of bad eggs in the judicial, in the ranks of the judiciary. I look at my own profession, the journalism profession, and I sometimes feel like crying when I see what has happened to the journalism profession. So you can't suppose that the journalism institution is alone, the legal profession the same, the judicial institution the same, the medical profession the same. So if you ask people who operate in this middle field, they will see the degeneration. So I don't think the judicial institution can be scapegoated or can be isolated or exonerated from the general decadence that is going on. But what makes the judiciary particularly dangerous is that is where we go to get justice. It's what separates us from the animal society. It's why we are a society of the law, not society of force, where it's not survival of the fittest, the Hobbesian state where that's governed by survival of the fittest, because there is law and there are people who interpret the law, who ensure that justice is done. So when a judge is compromised, it undermines the very essence of human rights and human existence. That's what makes it a lot more difficult. I will recall that 2 years ago when I think it was the same ICPC that did a survey and reported that the judiciary was regarded as the most corrupt institution in Nigeria, even ahead of the famed Nigerian police. So this should be a concern for everyone. And this didn't start today. I remember as a columnist in this day newspaper, I wrote a letter about this, about how those who have responsibility needed to clean the Augean table, that the judiciary has become. As an institution, we have no alternative. We have to continue to trust in their capacity to deliver justice. But there is so much work to do to cleanse that institution. And not just the judges, the lawyers that do all these things and collect money and bring all kind of cases also need to be questioned,
Do you believe in INEC? Credibility of INEC to conduct a free and fair election come 2027?
Again, INEC is a Nigerian institution, like all these institutions that we have mentioned. If INEC wants to do the right thing, they have everything to do the right thing. The I in INEC means independence. But it's about human beings, not the institution. It's about whether today the man who sits as the chairman of INEC, Professor Joash Amokpito, is willing to use the power that he has to do the right thing by the Nigerian people, by the Nigerian constitution, and preserve his place in history, in the glorious chapters of Nigerian history. Or he wants to be part of a history of ignominy, the long history of ignominy that has characterized people who have headed these institutions in the past. A couple of weeks ago, I was at an event celebrating the late Humphrey Nwosu that conducted the June 12th election. So every head of INEC has to see it as an opportunity to make or mar his reputation forever. For most of them, there is no coming back. The reason Atahiru Jega is able to walk around freely in this country today was what he did in 2015. Other past leaders of INEC cannot do that. Some of them, their names are synonymous with shame, with disgrace. Their children cannot even proudly announce their surname anymore. As an institution, like I said, INEC has everything that it takes to do the right thing. And there are people in INEC still who are committed to doing the right thing, up till now, who believe that they have a responsibility to this country and to God to do the right thing. So we are hoping that when the time comes, these people will stand up for the right thing. But we are not going to just trust. We trusted in the last election, where we know where that has led us. So we are not going to make the same mistake. So we'll do whatever, because the people we are dealing with will stop at nothing to impose themselves on the Nigerian people. Already you hear the way they talk. Because a government that is facing election will not be contemplating some of the things that they are doing. Right? During the Iran, it has resumed now, unfortunately. The price of crude went up. The price of gas or petrol went up all over the world. In almost all countries, government quickly stepped in to cushion the effect, to keep the price down. Nigerian government is facing an election next year. They didn't think it means anything. They didn't care. They don't let the people continue to suffer. They don't care. So it appears to us that they are not willing to, they don't think they need to draw their mandate from the people. Because there is nothing, they don't appear to care about anything. About anything. And like I said some days ago, they believe that there is only one problem today that they have. Only one problem, not two. Re-election. All these things that you are saying about people hungry, people suffering, price of petrol, this, that, people being kidnapped, people being stolen, people, they don't care. Everything is about 2027 election. That's why I say I don't think that because they know that in a free and fair election, by 10 o'clock, the election is over for them. So I don't think they are banking on the sanctity of the election for them to come back to power. But Nigerians will stop them.
In your heart of hearts, can President Tinubu still be defeated in next year's election? And is there any coordinated, because there is always this fear and insinuation about the government in power rigging itself back to power. Is there any coordinated plans or attempts to ensure, if that comes to the fore, that it will be frustrated?
President Tinubu cannot win election in 2027. He can't win the election in 2027. Go around the country and talk to people. In some parts of the north, you cannot go and mention Tinubu's name. I'm very sure of that. Even some APC governors and politicians contesting under APC cannot put Tinubu's photo on their campaign posters or messaging. But you can only rig where you have the possibility of winning. Every politician knows this. Where you have no possibility of winning, you cannot rig. When you rig, you cause trouble for yourself.
With 34 governors on his side, with
are these governors not the architect of the suffering that is going on? How many have you not seen governors that lost the election after leaving office? They contest for Senate and lost the election. If it were possible for governors to determine how the people vote, will governors be losing senatorial election? So having these governors doesn't mean, okay, if the governors will guarantee them victory, why are they still hunting opposition? Why are they chasing Peter Obi all over the place? Why are they harassing ADC all over the place? It's because they know that even when the time comes, look at the mess they have found themselves. The trap they have set for us as opposition parties, they have fallen into it. They set a trap for us, thinking that, we'll have problems trying to decide who our candidates will be. But look at the mess they have found themselves, because they think that they could use power, political power, governmental power, to impose candidates on their members. But look at what has happened to them. There are more disgruntled people within the APC than there are outside the APC today. And all these people I know will not support them. Will not. So even some of these governors are very, very bitter because they have imposed candidates on the governors also. They have acted contrary to what the governors wanted. So some of these governors will, when the chips are down on election day, on D-Day, everybody will answer their father's name. So the issue of having governors doesn't guarantee anything. The election of 2027, I'm not saying it's going to be a walkover, but there's no way President Bola Tinubu is not going to win the election unless they do something about it.
So you don't have any fears of his continued stay in power beyond 2027?
I have my fears. I have fears, of course. I'm not God. But God will answer our prayer. And our prayer is that it's about time that God forgive us of our sins, because God must be punishing us for a terrible sin that we committed as Nigerians for him to inflict on us this kind of government that we have today. So we are praying to God. I'm a Muslim. I know the story of a prophet, which was the prophet that ended in the belly of a whale. Jonah, right? Yeah, we call him Yunus, right? He ended up in the belly of a whale. What happened? He went on his knees and prayed to God. God, I've sinned, forgive me. Right? And God delivered him. So it's the same thing. We are in the belly of Tinubu's whale now. And we are praying to God to deliver us because we have sinned as Nigerians. So we know that God will answer our prayers because we can't continue like this. It's impossible to continue like this. Because the government has taken everything from everybody, including self-respect, including dignity. If you see the number of people, otherwise respectable people who are begging for money now to survive, to buy drugs. I know some of my old classmates who beg for money, and these are very respectable people who were successful in their own right, running their own businesses. So this can't continue. You see, Victor, if this government is, let's assume that they've tried some things and they got it wrong. Nobody's perfect. The first place to start is humility. Admit that some of the things we did was based on certain assumptions. But those assumptions have been proven to be faulty, to be wrong. We are therefore going to recalibrate and try something else. No. But they are so arrogant. I've never seen a sort of people more arrogant than these people. I've been in government, I can tell you this. They are so arrogant, they believe they know everything. And they believe they are doing the right thing. And President Bola Tinubu is a master strategist. He can do no wrong.
The invisibility of the...
Yes, and the country is collapsing under the weight of their incompetence. And they are the only ones who cannot see it. I remember the story of a king that he had this fire, this fire thing that they put to warm the body during winter. He had it. So it was getting so hot. But because the servant that used to remove the thing when it gets hot could not be found, the king sat there and continued to roast himself to death. It's called Barbara Tuchman. Call it, the American historian, she's late now, she called it suicidal incompetence. So what we are faced with today is suicidal incompetence, and they cannot see it. If there were hope, we say, okay, look, see how far they have gone. See how far they've gone. By next dispensation, they will take it further. All they tell is Calabar Coastal Highway, Sokoto Badagry Highway, this highway. It's a highway to death. It's a highway to the destruction of the country.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Victor.
Always a pleasure having you around.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.